downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've done it. You've downloaded another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. I'm Mr. Andy Evans, and the man, the myth, the legend, you know who, joining me, rocking the other side of the microphone, and normally Mr. Chris Stefanick. I always give you a rousing intro, but today, unfortunately, we got some sad things to talk about, and I'm just not in the best of spirits. But that's right, Mr. Chris Stefanick!
Yeah, I'm in mourning. Realistically, we have nowhere to go but down from here, you know? I guess it's possible, like, Urban Meyer, he passes the reins to Ryan Day, and Ryan Day never loses another game ever in the history of man. But I'm thinking that's probably not going to happen.
That's pretty lofty expectations. For,
So let's think about this. Even expecting him to be, it's Urban or Trussell standards. Urban and Trussell were 16-1 versus Michigan. Day is young. He's like, what, 39?
39, yeah.
39. So it's like he could be here the next 17 years if he's successful. Do we really expect him to go 16-1 versus Michigan?
No.
If you can break above 500, you're like, oh, you're doing pretty good if you're playing your rivals. 16-1. So it's like, it's like, honestly, like, where do we have to go but down? It's like I find it hard to believe he's going to do better than the standard that has been set by the last two permanent head coaches.
So where is your mind at? And we'll get a little bit more into Ryan Day and Gene Smith going with Ryan Day as Urban's successor. But just what went through your mind when you heard that he was stepping down? And, of course, this whole season, and you and I have talked about it both, on the air and off the air about Urban and all of the rumors, the speculation, the this and the that. Couple of different reports came out. I live in my grandma's basement, footballscoop.com, which I now have to, I guess, eat a shitload of crow when it comes to these fools, because apparently they have more of an inside source than I do, and I'm out there covering the team. And Gene Smith actually called out Ari Wasserman during the press conference and said, hey, Ari, where are you at? Yeah, I guess you got that one right, didn't you? Because Ari came out with a report, I think in like late September or October sometime, and said, here's the deal. Ryan Day's the coach in waiting, and he was quoting his sources that gave him this information, and Gene Smith vehemently came out and denied it. And then, of course, every time Urban was asked, are you coaching, are you coaching, are you coaching? And he kept saying, I want to coach for as long as I can. I want to coach for as long as I can. And I get it. At that point, you don't want to come out and say, yeah, at the end of the year, I'm stepping down. When in the press conference, Gene Smith said that for the last month, Chris, he and Urban had been sitting down and discussing at the end of the year options and discussing who Urban's successor should be. And obviously they both came to the decision that Ryan Day was the best choice available. And it almost seems like maybe they reacted in a knee-jerk reaction. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. I'm starting to get ahead of myself. But just all of that, the rumors, the speculation, Chris, it all turned out to be true. Your thoughts when you heard it? Were you surprised, or were you like, nope, I was expecting this? Because I was a little surprised. I felt maybe Urban's going to try and hang on for one more year. And quite frankly, I'm not even sure why I thought that. I maybe just wishful thinking more than anything else.
Well, okay. So first of all, earlier in the year, you had F-bomb saying like, Urban Meyer's done. There's a rift between him and Drake, and he's not coming back. And, of course I hate that guy, and I wanted him to be wrong. And in a sense, he was wrong. Like, I don't think it had anything to do with Drake, why he's not coming back.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if we'll ever truly find out what the real reasoning is, because I think there's still a lot to this story that's not being answered.
Well, let me just put it this way. So he's saying it's health. The insiders are saying, people that know him, that know the family, are saying, yeah, it's absolutely health. But I think the health was negatively impacted by the drama that happened at the beginning of the season with Zach Smith and the suspension. It's not a secret that stress will trigger his health condition, this brain cyst, to be worse. And that was a very stressful, like maybe like the most stressful situation of his life. He's basically put through the crucible, you know? So I think that coupled with the health is what sent him into retirement. Now, a part of me says like, he's going to be back coaching within 5 years somewhere.
And that's the big speculation out there in social media land. Everyone's like, okay, Urban, where are you off to next?
Yeah, I mean, because he's a competition junkie. You know, this guy gets off on competition, and how exciting is it going to be going from coaching, you know, elite programs to like sitting at home and you know, washing windows for Shelley, you know, it's, I just don't know. I just don't see that. I don't see it like being enough for him. I mean, let's face it, the guy was given an incredible talent. You know, he is better at coaching than, you know, pretty much anyone else on this planet, except for, you know, maybe a couple people, maybe, you know, maybe not as good as Saban, maybe not as good as Belichick, you know, but I mean, there's not many people that you could say are like,
not many
he's
people out there
definitively better than Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
So you're amazing at what it is you do. What you do, it has a big impact on people's lives. You can really make positive impacts in the lives of these men that he's coaching and the coaches that he hires, you know, as a role model, as a coach.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's people go to coaches, not just for sports, but to help them to be better men and women, you know? So he's got this opportunity to really have tremendous purpose in his life and affect, you know, millions of fans, make them proud, help them to be proud of the flagship sports program in this great state of Ohio and all that. So he has, you know, or wherever it is he chooses to go, you know, there's it's just his retirement. I mean, the guy's 54.
Yeah. It's not like he's all that old either.
I mean, he could be at the halfway point in his life, Andy. He could live another 54 years. I mean, modern technology is pretty common for people to live to 100, you know.
Some people out there have lived over 100 years. Now, I don't necessarily think that they'll be coaching that long, but
well, regardless, I mean, 54 is young to retire.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, yeah, a part of me is like, yeah, he's coming back. But, you know, at the same time, how much can you do you want to like trust the words coming out of his mouth? Because he's, you know, people asked him straight up, "Are you coaching?" And he's like, "Are you done coaching?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm done." And then I think the follow-up question was, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "I'm sure."
Yeah.
Now, you know, what's he going to say in his press conference? And nobody could blame him if he wasn't done and he comes back, you know, because you can't, like, in these press conferences, there's certain things you have to say. Be like, well, you know, but he never did say retirement.
Exactly.
He actually uttered the word retirement.
Yeah, now that's what I find interesting. I think there's several different things that we could kind of pluck from the press conference, look a little bit deeper into, and break down somewhat like that. You know, the words retirement were never uttered. And even that question, Chris, when he was asked, you know, are you done coaching? Yeah, I'm done. And the exact words I remember were, "Are you fairly certain?" And he said, "I'm certain."
Mm-hmm. He didn't say fairly certain. He said, "I'm certain." I remember how you say it.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, fairly certain. Like the question was asked, "Are you fairly certain?" Yeah, I'm certain. But you know, who's to say? You know, what's funny is I was actually talking to somebody about this, and you never heard about a brain cyst with Urban until the beginning of this year, or, you know, shortly after he came back and he starts smacking his head and people are like, what's going on? At least I don't remember ever hearing about a brain cyst. Were you ever, did you ever hear about him having a brain cyst before this season? Was this something you had ever? Yeah, see, you and I mean, we're fairly in the know when it comes to Ohio State. I mean, you know, we read the boards. You know, I do my reporting bit with Columbus Wired, all that kind of stuff. I had never heard of a brain cyst until this season. And, you know, when he left Florida, he left for heart problems. Well, supposedly, he had this brain cyst even before then when he was down at Florida. Why didn't he leave Florida? Because of this brain cyst. He left because of heart problems. And now, after everything that happened at the beginning of the season with the Zach Smith debacle and getting suspended, and we know that he did not whatsoever agree with being suspended, did all of a sudden now he have this brain cyst? It was interesting. This dude kind of opened my eyes a little bit, and I'm like, you're making some good points here. I never really took a lot of that into consideration. So, Chris, I mean, is there a chance, as insane as this might, I can't believe I'm going to say it. Is Urban lying? Is there a chance he's lying? And he just quite simply is pissed off, had this planned from the beginning of the year, or at least after he got suspended, and said, you know what, F you, I'm out. And I even said I thought a great middle finger from Urban would be for him to roll through, win the national championship, give Ohio State the bird, and tell them, I'm out of here. And then as the season progressed, I thought, well, he's going to be around for at least another year or two, because that's what he was telling everybody. Right. But obviously then we knew that it was just all, just wordplay from him. So I don't know. Am I crazy in saying this, Chris? Could Urban be lying and we do see him on the sidelines in another couple years coaching, I don't know, somewhere else, another major college football program?
That's really tough to say. I think we definitely could see him coaching somewhere else, be it the NFL or another job in college in a few years. And like I said, some ways I think I would be shocked because, I guess he'll probably go back to ESPN as a sports analyst, which is a pretty cool job. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't come with the excitement that coaching a team does. It doesn't come with the impact that you can have, the purpose in life you can have coaching a team. I mean, you have such direct impact on so many lives, and that's kind of a cool thing, and he's not going to have that. So, now there are other ways he could maybe get that he could run camps. He could, he could be like a godfather to the program and stick around like a Barry Alvarez kind of figure, or the Earl Bruce role of giving the pep talk before the Michigan game is now open, with Earl passing. So
who better to give a pep talk before that game than Mr. Urban Meyer? That's for sure.
Right. He could be, there's ways he could get that itch scratched, I guess is what I'm getting at. But I think he could do that and not be lying, and at the same time be like, yeah, my health is kind of messed up right now. And here's what he said in a recent press conference. They asked him, they're like, are you coming back next year? There's reports that you might not be coming back next year. Are you coming back next year? And what he says is, he goes, I want to be back next year. I want to be coaching next year. I'm going to sit down with my doctors, evaluate my health, try to come up with a plan and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, so forgive me, but basically I want to come up with a treatment plan. And if I can come up with a treatment plan for my condition, then I want to be back coaching next year. With the unsaid thing being, and if I can't, then I'm out. So, I think it is health. I think he's going to take a couple of years and see if he can get it under control. But I won't be surprised at all if he's back. So,
well, Chris, there just happens to be somewhat of a head coaching vacancy just about couple hours north of here for an NFL team.
Right.
Pretty ironic that they're probably going to be looking for a coach now. Maybe the Cleveland Browns hang on to Greg Williams. He's doing a pretty good job right now, but who's to say that they're not going to be out there? Obviously, I'm sure they're going to be interviewing people, and I can guarantee you, if they haven't already, they're going to be contacting a one Urban Frank to see if he's interested in coming on with them in one way, shape, or another, if not as the head coach. So right. What would you say? Would you be offended if he honestly went somewhere else? Now, if he went to the NFL, I'm not so sure I would be offended, but I would definitely say from here on out, don't believe a damn word that Urban Meyer says about health and leaving, because he's done it twice now, and it's apparent that he got out for one reason or another, whatever that reason may have been, but he's using health as a crutch so he can get out of a coaching situation and go somewhere else. If he went to another college program, unless it's like Mount Union or, some FCS school, somewhere where it's not honestly at least a major FBS school, a Power 5 school, if you will. If he went to a Power 5 team, boy, let me tell you what, Buckeye Nation, I've heard some of the people on sports talk radios going, well, don't get too upset. I would not be mad if Urban took a head coaching job somewhere else. Let me tell you what, if he went to another college school, especially a Power 5 school, Buckeye Nation, I think, would be incensed if he did something like that. And I hope that he is smart enough, and I know he's pretty damn smart, he would not do something like that.
Well, I think he's very concerned about his legacy. And he's even said as much. Like, there was questions about his legacy, and he was like, I don't have any control over that. But yeah, of course I want my legacy to be a good one, right? Yeah. Something to be proud of.
Yeah.
And again, just paraphrasing here, but it was something along those lines. And he grew up watching Ohio State. He grew up going to games in the Horseshoe. This is his dream job. I mean, he said as much it was his dream job, and I believe that. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It would be, Drake or no Drake. I don't see leaving the position to go somewhere else for a job that he doesn't like as much. I mean, I think his family is very much settled into Ohio. He's got his family. His wife likes living in Columbus, has a role in Columbus. His kids are here. I think one of his daughters goes to Cincinnati, and I'm not sure where his son's going, but
I think maybe his son is going to Cincinnati too. I could be off base.
Yeah. He got a graduate degree from Ohio State and an undergrad from Cincinnati. I don't know, like you, I don't know that I'd be offended, but I don't know. At that point, I would say, well, I guess you can't believe a word the guy says. And in my eyes, I guess his character would have taken a little bit of a hit.
Oh, absolutely.
At the same time, I mean, I know coaches lie. I mean, they're put in situations where they kind of have to lie. They put in these press conferences. You can't, like, if you start saying, well, I'm thinking about leaving, like, you're going to send the program into turmoil, and it's not fair to the other people that are depending on you, to those kids that have put in all that work, to the assistant coaches. You have to sit there and be like, oh no, I'm coaching next year if they ask you. Honestly, you do. Now, once you announce your retirement, you don't have to say it anymore. Once you announce you're leaving, you can then be like, then you can say, well, yeah, I know I'm leaving, but I'm going, so I'm looking around, or, I might take a year off and then I'll be back. Or he doesn't have to say that I'm done at that point. And without, it's not going to, he doesn't have to lie anymore is what I'm getting at, so where in the past he was kind of put in a situation like all head coaches, and they all do it. They're all, fudge the truth a little bit to one degree or another, if not a lot. But yeah, so, we'll see what happens going forward. I mean, he's probably going to get that job, like I said, as an analyst at ESPN. And he seems to like that.
It's a position he's already kind of familiar with. I mean, he did it in that one off year in 2011.
Yeah,
why not do it again?
He's a decent color guy. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be one of the best analysts in the world like he was as a coach. But there are worse gigs to have than being a color commentator. So,
let's face it. I mean, we've heard Urban in pressers before, and he's not exactly the most charismatic guy, you know what I mean? And I can remember in that off year that he had watching football games and listening to him up in the booth, and I wasn't too impressed. I mean, I'm not trying to dog Urban. I mean, I guess I am dogging him, but quite frankly, coaching is definitely his forte rather than being an announcer. But he's Urban Meyer, right? So he's gonna, get the benefit of the doubt as far as, hey, let's get him up here in the booth and listen to him talk some football. So,
right. Now, I was interested that, so here's an interesting thing. So they hired with Day. They went with the promote from within. They went with the let's kind of just keep the machine driving down the road, because keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that, we'll get down to the pros and cons of that, because, they could have done a national search. I mean, like I said, Ohio State's a big time job, and almost every coach out there, if you offer them the job, they're going to take it. There's only a select few that will look at that and be like, you know what? That's all right. I'm going to stay where I'm at.
Yeah.
They could have had, for the most part, who they wanted. I mean, there's like, Nick Saban's not going to take the job. Bill Belichick's not going to take it. Probably Dabo Swinney's not going to.
I was going to say, if I can think, off the top of my head, probably a handful of guys would be Belichick, Saban, Swinney, even probably dude down at Georgia, Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
Probably not taking it. And probably just about any coach pretty much in the Big Ten, just for, jumping from one Big Ten team to another 1 year.
Oh, I don't buy that for a second. Oh my God, they offered Mark D'Antonio. He's gone.
See that? I was just getting ready to say, I don't see Mark D'Antonio making a jump like that. I understand he was here as an assistant under Tressel, but man, I mean, not only are you jumping from one,
the only Big Ten coach that wouldn't leave would be Harbaugh, because he's at his dream school, and that would destroy his legacy even worse than it's already been destroyed.
See, I don't think that. I mean, D'Antonio's put so much time in at Michigan State. I really don't see him jumping ship. I mean, that would be extremely traitorous, even to a program like Michigan State that certainly doesn't have the prestige that Ohio State does. You think D'Antonio would? I just don't see it. At least not D'Antonio.
Oh yeah, he would leave that in 2 seconds. Wow, I think you're kidding yourself. And I honestly, there would be people that would be pissed off, and among the Spartans faithful. But I don't think any of them could blame him once they calm down. I don't think any of them could blame him. I mean, he's got ties to the program. It's obviously a superior program. It's a destination job. He's not winning national titles at Michigan State, but he might. He's won them already at Ohio State. He could win more if he goes back. So.
Well, let's think about it, though. He did beat Ohio State to get into the college football playoff that 1 year in 2015. So, I mean, it's not like he hasn't had the opportunity to play and win for a national championship. Granted, first round, he played Alabama, which pretty much squashed his chances of winning a national championship that year. But still, he was there. He got in,
No, I don't know. I don't agree 1 second with what you're saying. I think you're crazy. Right. I think there are so many guys.
I am crazy.
It's okay. Let's do this. I was going to go into one other angle, and we're taking it. My main thing I was going to say is, for sure that Urban's not taking a job at another college next year, because he just left Mickey Marotti and Mark Pantonio and I forget, but he left the whole staff of guys that are staying with Day. Which is awesome, because that's those guys.
Brian Hartline.
Well, I don't even mean to just the assistants. I mean Mariotti is he will say that's my right hand man. He will say this is like the heart and soul of the program, and he's been with them everywhere he's went. And the same thing with Pantoni, and those guys both are pretty much universally acknowledged as being the best in their field. Where Brian Hartline is not acknowledged as being the best in his field, right? I mean, maybe he will be at some point, but he's not there right now. So, forget the assistant coaches. I'm just talking about those guys, program guys that are going to make it, make the job that Day has, taking over a program like Ohio State, a hell of a lot easier than it would be for somebody new coming in from the outside. But while we're talking about people coming in from the outside, when they announced they weren't going to do a search, they were going to go with Day, I was actually kind of pissed off, because to me it was kind of the lazy thing to do. Because in my mind, you hire the best coach available, and is Day the best coach available? I guess it's possible. We don't know. We could be 10 years from now saying, man, I didn't think there's anywhere to go but down. Day took it to the next level. As it turns out, he's the next Saban, and he, in 10 years we've got 3 or 4 national titles, and wow, what a great hire by Gene Smith. But I don't have a crystal ball, so all I can do is look at resumes, and let's face it, I mean, his resume ain't shit. He's not coached anywhere. He was an interim coach for 3 games. There's dozens of coaches with better resumes than him. I would even go with a Luke Fickell has a better resume than him. Let alone, Matt Campbell at Iowa State. A lot of people were talking about him as being the top young name of it out there. And he's an Ohio guy coaching at Mount Union. I think he grew up in Massillon. Just, like you said, dozens of guys. I would even try Sweeney. I don't know that they would get him, but I would try, because I think Ohio State is a little bit better of a job. But, traditionally, Clemson is not a powerhouse, although Sweeney has done a heck of a job transforming it into one. So we'll see if he can sustain it. But so far, it looks like he's going to be able to for at least the foreseeable future. but I would try. There's a lot of names out there. I mean, heck, Chris Peterson would be a heck of a guy to get, at least give an interview to. There's a lot of names out there. I mean, Vrabel, if you're wanting somebody with a tie to the program, you could go with him, or heck, Shiano, Kevin Wilson, even both have better resumes than Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day's just resume, it just isn't that great. It's not. So it was, to me, it was like the lazy thing to do. It was kind of it's risky because they could have gotten a proven winner. Matt Campbell's a proven winner, and they're going with a guy who they don't know anything about. He's not a proven winner. So it's very risky. At the same time, I'm not going to get too spun up about it because, well, frankly, we don't know that Ryan Day isn't the best guy for the job. I mean, it is possible that he's the best guy for the job. And we have some precedents for having a guy within the system take over, not when the team's falling apart, when the program's falling apart, but when it's doing well, taking over and just, they got momentum, and just keeps the machine on trucking, keeps the train going down the tracks. Of course, Lincoln Riley now 2 straight berths in the playoffs, 2 straight Heisman trophies, taking over for Bob Stoops. That's obviously one example. Another one would be Brett Bielema. He took over for Barry Alvarez, and they didn't miss a beat in Wisconsin. And I really like that example even better, because then you see Bielema go to Arkansas, and like building from scratch is hard. It's a lot harder to build from scratch than to just take over a program that's up and running.
Absolutely.
And so what that means is you don't have to be as good of a coach to be successful if you're just taking over a system that's already in place and not changing anything, just keeping, making sure the oil gets changed regularly and there's gas in the tank, And Alvarez showed he's nothing special as far as the coaching goes when he went to Arkansas. But he was doing pretty darn good at Wisconsin when he took over for Barry Alvarez, So it just kind of goes to show that Day doesn't have to be amazing to keep the train going down the tracks. So I'm not upset about the hire. It raises some eyebrows, not doing interviews. I mean, there was a lot of great coaches available, and you went with a guy who's basically a complete unknown. But there is some precedence for this being a successful model. So, I mean, I don't know. What was your take when you looked at it?
Well, one interesting thing that Gene Smith said during that press conference was he knew that there had been some offers, if you will, towards Ryan Day.
Right.
And he knew that he had to act here pretty fast if he wanted to keep Ryan Day at Ohio State.
Right.
And
so real quick, let me just throw this out here. So it's come out that the job he was offered last year, because everybody said he got offered an SEC job last year and refused it. That was Mississippi State. This year, they were Colorado and Maryland both wanted him, and Georgia Tech. So he had Colorado, Maryland, and Georgia Tech were all after him for this year. So those were his suitors, and probably weren't going to keep him if it wasn't, unless Urban came out and said, I'm either retiring this year or I'm going to do, I don't know what you want to call it, a farewell tour next year, and then retire and hand the reins over to Day. That was pretty much the only way you were going to keep him, with those teams suiting him.
It almost sounds to me, Chris, like this was, once again, Gene said that he and Urban had sat down for the last month every Sunday and discussed Urban's future. And it almost sounds to me like this was an orchestrated, planned thing for the last month. And, Gene Smith might have really been in Urban's ear, like, Urban, look, man, this whole cyst thing, it's really serious. Why don't you just go ahead and call it quits? We'll buy you out, okay? You can use this cyst as, another medical condition. You're not breaking the contract, because there's probably something in his contract that says if there are, reasons that, my health is taking a downturn, I'm allowed to go ahead and step down and still get paid, the rest of my contract, or at least, there's a buyout clause if he leaves for health reasons. It almost seems to me like this was something orchestrated between Gene Smith, Urban Meyer, who knows, Michael Drake, the university, blah, 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 blah. but that this was planned. Because for the last month, Gene Smith said they had sat down and they had talked about it. And I'm with you. I'm skeptical about Ryan Day. I'm sorry. Dude, 39 years old, okay? He's got a lot of coaching experience, including a couple of seasons at the NFL level, which is nice, which is good, which is impressive. He doesn't have any real experience being the long-term head coach of a football team. And I get it that at some point, dude, if that's what you strive to be as a head coach in your career, at some point, yeah, you're going to get a head coaching job. Urban even, was asked, could you imagine taking over to be the head coach of Ohio State? I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, but essentially taking over this kind of role, this kind of job at this high profile of a university at, the age that Ryan is, and he said, no, not a chance, not a chance. When Urban took his first head coaching job, he was 36 years old and it was at Bowling Green.
Right.
And he had 2 good years there. Prove that, hey, yeah, I'm a good coach. Went out to Utah, 2 more great years out there. In fact, took an undefeated Utah team to a BCS Fiesta Bowl and beat the crap out of Pitt with a guy by the name of Alex Smith as his quarterback. Then he goes down to Florida, and what's he do? He wins a national championship in his second year, wins another 2 years later. And then, of course, we all know what happened after that. And then he comes up here and has great success as well. But I'm skeptical that a 39-year-old with 0 head coaching experience aside from 3 games, which it's easy to take over an Ohio State team for 3 games because in the back of your mind, Urban's coming back. It's not
right.
like Urban might be back, he might not be back, I don't know, this is, getting crazy. You've got in the back of your mind, okay, I've got the reins here for, a little less than 2 months. Get these guys ready, 3 games. Then after that, Urban's back. It's easy to kind of, take over the car, kind of put it in neutral as it's speeding down the highway, at 80 miles an hour, and you're just kind of coasting for those 3 games. And
not the toughest competition in the world, those 3 games either.
And he played Oregon State, Rutgers, and okay, he did have to take the team down to AT&T Stadium to take on, at the time, an undefeated 15th ranked TCU team, which we found out a little bit of a I don't know what you want to say, a falsity, a farce.
That was not the number 15 team in the country. Let's put it that way.
Right. They didn't end up being as good as we thought they were, at least at the time. But at the time, they were still undefeated and they still had a lot to play for in their season. And you can see why they obviously played Ohio State so tough. But having said that, yeah, it wasn't like he, was taking the team to Penn State, like Urban ended up doing, taking them up to Michigan State, taking them, to Maryland, playing a number 1 ranked Michigan defense in the big house or in the shoe at the end of the year. It wasn't like he had to face all of that. But the fact that, yeah, Ohio State, more specifically Gene Smith, thought that much of Ryan Day, either A, speaks volumes to Ryan Day, and that he indeed is ready to take over an Ohio State program, which I am skeptical that they're giving this guy who has no head coaching experience the head coaching job at Ohio State. And granted, it's Ohio State. Like you said, some coaches out there, Lincoln Riley, Burt up there at Wisconsin, I'm sure there's other examples that we could use that I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head, but who were basically kind of riding on the coattails of the long-time successful coaches who had preceded them. Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin, Bob Stoops at Oklahoma, and some coaches don't carry on the tradition. Lincoln Riley, and at the time, Brett to a certain degree up there at Wisconsin. Yeah, they carried on. He carried on the tradition pretty well, and Lincoln's doing so at Oklahoma. I'm sorry. This is probably the new trend. The young coach within the program who is going to continue success, but is Ryan Day going to continue that success just because he's at Ohio State? I mean, let's face it, dude. Ohio State, you're at Ohio State. For the most part, you're going to pretty much that Ohio State just recruits itself.
I think like baseline is like 9-3. If you give the team to a competent coach, and you're not like giving it to like you or me, but like, like a Luke Fickell or whatever, somebody who's, pick a coach who's like a decent looking coach out there. I mean, they're going to get 9-3 without just rolling out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, that's exactly where I have this team next year, including a bowl game. I've got them 9-4. I mean, if they go 10-3, I'll be very surprised, quite frankly. And it's not just because of of Urban leaving and Ryan Day taking over first-year head coach. I mean, there's a lot of offensive questions, next year, which that's for another podcast. But
there's the defensive questions are the biggest ones I have. Like, what's he going to do for the defense next year? And of course, those questions, as we know that he has retained some guys, some assistants, Marotti, Pantoni, you just talked about, or at least at this point, it looks like they're going to stay. Let's hope so. Yeah, because if he loses those guys, then you might be talking, it might be in question here. But, does Schiano really want to work for Ryan Day? I mean, he was going to leave last year. God, I hope not.
I can guarantee you Schiano is hardcore looking for a job right now. I think Schiano's gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kevin Wilson, does he want to work for Ryan Day? These are guys that, like you said, they've got experience. I mean, Greg Schiano, for Pete's sake, has been a head coach at the NFL level, not a quarterback's coach at the NFL level like Ryan Day, a head coach. And Gene Smith stepped over two guys who have more impressive resumes than Ryan Day to keep Ryan Day. I think Colorado, Maryland, Mississippi State, those would be great, first-time jobs for Ryan Day. Not Ohio State. I'm sorry. I love Ryan Day. I think he's come in here. He's done a great job. As far as, the offense, you could see the change in JT Barrett's play there from 2016 to 2017. I thought he did get better. But I'm skeptical about this, Chris. I am. And I'm not sitting here saying that I don't think within time Ryan Day can't be a good coach at Ohio State. I think he will be. I think he actually will be. He'll have them playing at a very high level. And winning Big Ten championships, competing for national championships, much like Urban. But just get ready, Buckeye fans. I'm serious. Maybe I'm not giving Ryan Day enough credit. I came out with an article on Columbus Wired saying, "Is Ryan really ready?" And I had some people commenting back to me like, "He's fine. Don't worry about it, Andy. They got this. Ryan Day, he's going to be A-okay." I'm still skeptical. I'm sorry. So I think within a few years, he's going to be good, like I said, but don't be surprised. Don't be surprised, and don't hold your expectations, especially for this upcoming season, given the question marks on the offense, the defense, the whole nine, and probably reshuffling his coaching staff, that, they're going to come out and just keep right on rolling like they are, like Urban had them. I'm just... couple years here, folks, it's going to be a little rough, and rough being Ohio State standards rough, where they go 8-5, they go 9-4, maybe they even go 10-3, and people are still pitching a fit about 10-3. So Just get ready, Buckeye fans, because I don't think that things are going to be so rosy to start with Ryan Day as the head coach.
So Urban Meyer, if you average his seasons at Ohio State, his 7 years, he averages out to a 12-1 record.
That's insanity.
It's insanity.
One loss a year.
I don't see him having good luck averaging 12-1 the next 7 years, Ryan Day. Just good luck with that. Because and here's the thing, Andy, think about this. Urban Meyer over his 7 years, other than Michigan State in 2015, I think it was, he's won every close game. When he's lost, he's usually lost handily. At least it seems, especially lately. And maybe that Michigan State Big Ten championship game in 2013 that one was close. I think that one was down to 1 or 2 scores at the end.
Yeah, they lost by 11, I think 35-24 was the final score.
Yeah. So that, but like every close game, I mean, it's like, okay, this year Maryland goes for 2 and the quarterback overthrows a wide open guy or they lose. Penn State, they beat by what, 1-2 points? Have to come back in the fourth quarter. Beat Nebraska by 5 points, I think it was. You go back last year, I mean, like think of the game with Penn State last year. That JT leads the comeback and like completes his last 8 or 11 passes in a row. They're losing to Michigan.
16.
Yeah, 16 in a row. They're losing to Michigan last year. Dwayne Haskins comes in, leads a comeback. There you go to overtime versus Michigan the year before that, and Curtis Samuel has that famous touchdown run for the victory, for the walk-off victory. Brady Hoke goes for 2. And they have to, Tivis Powell has to.
2013.
Yeah, he has to make the interception when they go for 2 at the end of the game. Over and over and over, you can go to these super tight games. And Urban, these are like coin flip kind of games, Andy. And Urban, like, seriously, did he lose a coin flip game? Like, in his entire, he had a bunch of them and he won every single one of them, though, which is a credit to him, like keeping his team together, keeping them they're calm. How many times did like Dwayne Haskins lead a comeback, like Penn State this year led that comeback, never was rattled. Like that's people were like the people in the huddle, interviews after the game. They're like, hey, Dwayne was cool as a cucumber the whole time, leading us right down the field. It's never been a big deal, even for when he came in last year in Michigan. Urban has had his team expect to win, come out and play, handle pressure situations, and be just fine and win. Usually those are 50-50 kind of things, Andy. They're 50-50 kind of games. So is Ryan Day, is he going to like win every close game? I don't expect him to. So you're right. To expect 12-1 going forward. Now, having said that, I think Urban is not leaving the cupboard bare by any stretch of the imagination.
No, absolutely not.
There's a fair number of guys leaving, but there's a fair number of guys coming back too. This was a pretty young team. And the schedule sets up really nicely. So out of conference, let's look at the schedule next year. You got Florida Atlantic in the Horseshoe, Cincinnati in the Horseshoe.
Hey, let me tell you what, though. All right. Yeah, the first 2 games, Florida Atlantic and Cincinnati in the Horseshoe. However, hey, Florida Atlantic, the Fighting Lane Kiffins, baby. Don't discount Lane Kiffin. I'm not sitting here. I mean, you say Florida Atlantic and you're like, oh, God, Florida Atlantic. Come on, Andy. But, hey, Lane Kiffin is their head coach. Now, I think Lane Kiffin as a person is a complete moronic idiot. He's a buffoon. He's a liar. However, he's a pretty good football coach. And Cincinnati, boy. I mean, Luke Fickell returning to the Horseshoe, coming back home. Look out. That could be a game.
Florida Atlantic is a 5-7 Conference USA team. They went 3-5 in Conference USA. Lane Kiffin, great offensive coordinator. Maybe he's a good head coach. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not scared of Florida Atlantic. Cincinnati, that's one. It's scary because, Cincinnati's 10-2 this year, and Ohio State basically cannot win that game. Even if they hammer Cincinnati, people will just be like, well, it's Cincinnati. They're supposed to hammer them. They're an American Athletic Conference team. Where if it's close, it's like, oh my God, what's wrong? Is Day, here we go. Day's not living up to the standard. You know what I mean? It's like, let alone they lose. And meanwhile, Cincinnati,
exactly.
Pretty much every kid who went to Cincinnati, grew up wanting to play for Ohio State and feels snubbed and wants to show that they're good enough. So that's a dangerous game. Ohio State should still have a big talent edge over Cincinnati, a big, more than that they do over most of the Big Ten teams. Is it going to be? Are they going to be Cincinnati going to be better than Rutgers? Sure. But they're not going to if Rutgers, if Cincinnati was in the Big Ten, I don't think they finish in the top 7. Let me just put it that way. They're a bottom half of the Big Ten team at best. So I'm not concerned. That one's not scaring me. So you got Florida Atlantic, Cincinnati at Indiana, which again, Indiana isn't trash. They went 5-7 and they're a Big Ten team, went 2-7 in the Big Ten. But the Ohio State should handle them. They should handle them. And then you got Miami, Ohio, again, huge talent gap. Then you got at Nebraska. Now, if you're going to Nebraska, tough place to play.
What?
And Nebraska's on the upswing, but I still at best I see, Nebraska as like a middle of the road Big Ten team. I mean, and that's if Scott Frost can make some headway, because they haven't been they've been worse than a middle of the road Big Ten team, the last couple of years. So, and it's not until October 5th. Let's see, that's what? It's
actually September 28th. September 28th, but
no, I'm saying it's not until October 5th when they play Michigan, their first game that I'm worried about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Nebraska.
Yeah, so the first game that I'm worried about is Michigan State, October 5th, sixth week of the season. They've had plenty of times to work out the kinks, and it's in the horseshoe.
And that game's at home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now, what are the games against the West? So this is the variable, you play the East every year, so the variables are non-conference in the West. So they go to Nebraska. Probably a middle of the road Big Ten team. Maybe, if Scott Frost could really start to turn things around, maybe that's a harder game than I'm thinking. At Northwestern, which probably won't be an easy game. You are talking about a team that just won the West, and their losses more for the most part by like the skin of their teeth. The few games they did lose, and Fitzgerald, a great coach. Speaking of coaches that would be amazing to give an interview to. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald's resume is like 1,000 times better than Ryan Day's. And then after that, you've got Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, Northwestern, Nebraska is not a great draw for the Western teams, to be frank.
I was just going to say those are three, I would say, pretty tough teams from the West.
But the most difficult one probably is Wisconsin, and at least you get them at home. That at Northwestern stuff. So, but I think it's high through the first 10 games of the season. I think there's a pretty good chance that Ohio State's at 9-1 and top 10, top 5 kind of team. Now, what's going to make or break the season is game 11 in Columbus, Penn State, game 12 in Ann Arbor. Yeah. So now, but the thing is, like Penn State, I think that one's like, who knows? Because Penn State, another team that like, or at least as far as the resume looks to have a better coach than Ohio State has right now. It's like right now, like Ohio State has had the best coach in the Big Ten since 2000. Like if you discount the interim year of Luke Fickell in 2011, they've clearly had the best coach in the Big Ten since 2000. Do they have the best coach right now? I mean, do they have even a top 4 or 5 coach in the Big Ten now? I don't know. I mean, PJ Fleck, there's all kinds of guys. I mean, he might be one of the worst coaches in the Big Ten for all we know. So the talent now we saw, it sure looked like there's a talent gap between Ohio State and Michigan. When they thumped them this year, in like a historical way, they thumped them, and that's not going to rectify itself in 1 year. So they should still have a really good shot at being like a better team than Michigan going to Ann Arbor that November 30th, 2019. But I don't know. I mean, they could very easily go end the season 0-2, and then Buckeye Nation is like going crazy, and and the people like you and me, voice of reason, are like, look, you got to give Ryan Day some time. It's his first year. I wouldn't even start judging him at all, pretty much till year 3. So we'll see. I think the schedule is pretty nice, though. I mean, you're going to play Penn State and Michigan every year. Better to have them late in the season where you've got time to work out the kinks than early. And that's my thinking. You'd rather have your tough games early you'd rather have your easy games early to give you a chance to work out the kinks, and where you can make some mistakes, but because the talent gap is wide, it doesn't cost you a loss. It's much better to learn a lesson while winning than it is to learn one by losing,
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting Penn State game, because I don't ever remember playing Penn State this late in the season. Like I can remember playing them like last year, they played them on Halloween, or at least like the day before, October 30th, late October. I don't ever remember playing Penn State this late in the season, and especially backed up against Michigan. Man, yeah, that's going to be two.
That's asking a lot.
Back-to-back. Yeah, that's going to be 2 back-to-back Donniebrooks, man. A couple of real slobber knockers, Chris. And I'll be honest with you, right now, chalk it up, baby. 2 L's on the schedule right there. And
wow, your crystal ball is a little clearer than mine. I'm not ready to make that call yet.
2 L's, man. I'm chalking it right now, man.
I think
I think chalking it up.
I mean, odds are at least one of those is a loss. I'll give you that. You know, if I had to say, if you say right now, like what am I predicting for Penn State and at Michigan? I'd say 1-1. And don't ask me which one's the win and which one is the loss. I just say 1-1.
If Jim Harbaugh cannot beat first-year head coach Ryan Day in his own house, then I will predict never again will Ohio State lose to Michigan. Because there is absolutely no reason why Jim Harbaugh should not be able to beat Ryan Day in his own house for his first win over Ohio State.
Andy. On paper, going into that game this year, Michigan had the best team they've had in years. And Ohio State had the worst team they've had in years. And they crushed them.
Wow.
They crushed them.
Time out. Ohio State had the worst team they'd had in years on paper going into that Michigan game?
You don't think so? What team is this? Which team has Urban Meyer had that was worse than this team?
2012.
The 12-0 team was worse than this team? Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, but we're talking about, though, when you say on paper, I mean, we're talking about a one-loss team. But, okay, time out. Let's back up.
Like, Maryland had to, widely overthrow a wide open guy to not beat Ohio State 53-52.
Defensively, no argument, yes. And that has been
that's kind of a big component of how good your team is, don't you think?
Well,
it's like, yeah, the team's great. Defense is terrible, but the team's great. It's like, hey, these two things do not compute, Andy.
They compute for me because your fucking offense did something to get you those wins. On paper, this is the best offense that they've ever had. The worst defense, the best offense. You know, two sides of the spectrum, though, to this team. You know, so I can't sit here and say that this is the worst team on paper that Urban's ever had. Defensively, yes. Offensively, absolutely not. It's the best.
Discipline as well. I mean, 125th in the country in penalties. Come on now.
Hey, keep slinging the rock, Dwayne. Good for you for getting a seat in New York for the Heisman Trophy, something that hasn't happened since 2006. I mean, we haven't even had an Ohio State player get a seat there. But I'm just saying, man, once again, I'm looking at a 9-4 season, maybe even 8-5. Penn State and Michigan, L's. I mean, I'm sorry, Jimmy. You can't beat Ohio State on your own turf. Then you got major friggin' problems. Northwestern, Northwestern, at Nebraska.
What happens if Dwayne Haskins shocks the world and says,
I'm coming back.
I want a shot to play in the playoffs. I want a shot at the Heisman. I'm coming back. Then how would that change your prediction?
Oh, you kidding me? It's going to change it a lot. I would go from 4 or 5 losses to 2.
Yeah,
I think there's a couple of L's on that schedule.
I think if Dwayne Haskins comes back, I think the defense is probably going to be better.
Oh, I think the defense is going to be much improved. In fact, I think next year that's going to be their saving grace, Chris. I really do. Call me crazy. Call me crazy.
If Dwayne Haskins is back, I don't see the offense having a big drop off. I mean, yeah, they're going to lose some wide receivers, but if Dwayne Haskins was back, I would not see a big drop off. So I would say next year, if Dwayne Haskins comes back, you're probably looking at 11-1. It's my thinking. But that's like probably a pipe dream considering he might be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I just can't see him coming back. So no, I would say I'm leaning towards 2 or 3 losses in the regular season. So 9-3, 10-2 is what I'm thinking next year. But
yeah, I'm going 9-3 or 8-4 in the regular season, and then or maybe 9-4 or 9-3. Or 9-4, 8-5 overall. That's my thing. And whether or not they win or lose a bowl game, whatever. But yeah,
typically a bowl game is like a coin flip. You're playing against another really good team, so it's hard to predict those without knowing who it's going to be.
Yeah. So real quick, Dwayne, did he get screwed for the Heisman? I mean, seriously, Kyler Murray, little bit of a shock. I really thought it was Tua's, but I think that Georgia game really screwed Tua.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people then flipped over and threw their vote to Kyler Murray. It's interesting. I'm sitting here looking at a lot of the national statistics, and, there's definitely some categories where Kyler actually has a leg up on
Sure.
Dwayne Haskins, like passing efficiency. He's actually the highest rated quarterback in the country.
Total
He's got
yards.
more total offense. Yeah, more
total yards. He's got
offense.
Touchdowns, they're even. Turnovers, Dwayne Haskins actually has more. If you add up interceptions and fumbles, he's got more than what Kyler Murray has. So it's
he has 8 picks and at least 1 or 2 fumbles.
Yeah, something like that. So it's I was just glad Tua didn't get it, because everybody was saying Tua was going to get it, and it was like, come on now. Jalen Hurts led that team to the national title game last year, and the only thing Jalen Hurts didn't do last year was beat Georgia, and this year he beat Georgia. So
right,
I'm like, you seriously telling me that Tua is just some magical player? That I like. You could put a lot of quarterbacks into that offense, because Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, but I don't know that he's anything great. I think you could put a lot of quarterbacks in that offense and he would look great, because every week in and week out, he's playing with a stacked deck. He's got a team that's vastly more talented than almost everybody they play, except for, I guess, when they go against Georgia. So it's just like, oh, come on, man. This guy, like, you put Jalen Hurts in there and they're probably 13-0 playing for, So I'm like, why? How can you give it to Tua when, like, the backup would lead him to 13-0? Or, like, if you put, Tate Martell in there, I mean, are you kidding me? Like, would we win a game? I'm like exaggerating a little bit, but I'm like, come on, man. I mean, like, there's no way they're 11-1 with Tate Martell in there this year. So, and then it's like, statistically, well, the passing statistics, there's no question that Haskins had the better statistics. And I guess I'm okay with Murray just because statistically, in some ways, he had some better individual stats because he was a better runner. So if you combine the two, and Oklahoma statistically was a better offense than Ohio State's as a whole. And he had some great highlights. I mean, let's face it, highlights are part of it, and he had some magical runs where, I don't know if you see the one run. I mean, he's got a bunch of them, but like the one where he runs for 57 yards versus Texas to get them back in the game.
Yeah.
That one earlier this year. It's like, oh my God. It's just, it's almost like Michael Vick back there, just some of the things he can do with his legs was just really special. So, I got to admit, like, his highlight reel is better than Dwayne Haskins. I think because he's like, the combination of, like, the passing of Dwayne Haskins with the running of, a Michael Vick or Braxton Miller kind of guy, right? So, but here's one thing I will say, and I'm going to credit Tate Martell for pointing this out. So Tate Martell goes on Twitter to defend Haskins. I don't know if you saw this. He pointed out some pretty interesting stats. So here's what Tate Martell posted to Twitter. He said Haskins threw for 332.7 yards per game in 3 contests against teams that had top 30 defenses with 10 touchdowns and no interceptions. So 332, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Murray threw for 264 yards per game in his 1 contest against a top 30 defense, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tua, in his 3 games that he played against top 30 defenses, he averaged 209 yards per contest with 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Ooh.
So playing. So yeah. Murray has all these great stats, and if you combine running and passing, his are better than Haskins. If you just look at passing, Haskins still has better stats. But Murray played against defenses that were Swiss cheese, where the Big Ten actually plays some defense. The Big 12, not so much. So then he goes on, Tate Martell points out, so Haskins, in his game, he had a single game versus teams that were in the top 10. Michigan, number 1 defense in the country. He throws for 430 yards and 6 touchdowns. Murray, no games against top 10 defenses. So there you go. Nothing there. Tua, when he played against top 10 defenses, he had 140 yards. So 430 yards versus 140 for Tua and 0 for Murray against top 10 defenses. And so, and again, Haskins, 6 touchdowns versus top 10 defenses. Tua, 1 touchdown versus top 10 defense. So 141 touchdowns,
wow.
430 and 6 touchdowns. So I'm like, and then when he posted
Martell a stats major?
I'm like sitting there, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I really wasn't thinking about the quality of the competition, which is one of the ways where stats can be deceiving, and shame on me for not thinking about this before. And thank you, Tate Martell, for pointing it out. But I'm like, when you adjust for quality of the competition, I'm not so sure that Haskins, I think if you just, if you factor that in, it's not even close. He blows these other guys out of the water.
And that's very interesting. I never thought of it in those terms as well. I guess it takes a fellow quarterback, to take something like that into account. Is Martell a stats major or what, man? I mean, he's really throwing out some crazy stats there. I mean, that's impressive. But no, I mean, that's an excellent point. And I guess you look at obviously the fact that if you look at total defense right now, I would even say maybe not even necessarily total defense, but passing defense. Michigan is ranked 6th in the country. Penn State is 8th in the country.
Yeah.
Michigan State's 21st in the country. Iowa's 24th, but we didn't play them, so I guess that doesn't matter. Nebraska was 32nd in the country. So, right there's 4 or 5 teams that Ohio State played that are in the top 32 in the country in pass efficiency defense.
Yeah.
The SEC, Alabama had to play Mississippi State, who's number 1, LSU, who's number 9. They didn't play Florida, who's 18th.
But Tua was getting 140
Georgia.
yards per game versus top 10 defenses.
We're talking. Okay, Kyler Murray, right?
No, I'm saying Tua. Kyler Murray didn't
Tua.
play any top 10 defenses, according to Tate Martell.
I'm looking right now as far as pass efficiency defense.
This is he was talking to overall
account.
top 10, not pass efficiency.
I'm talking no. Just team passing efficiency defense. Because, let's face it. Okay, we can look at a total defense, but I'd rather know when we're talking about a quarterback, how did he fare against a team that's tough against the pass, right?
Okay.
Because they can shut down the run all day long and be a highly ranked total defense, but be crappy against the pass. As far as the Big 12 is concerned, the first team that I come to in team passing efficiency defense at 43rd is TCU. And ironically, who's ranked right below them in number 44 in team passing efficiency defense? Yes, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Right. But TCU, again, the toughest team that the Big 12 has, Ohio State even played them, let alone all the pansy ones. So, yeah, that's funny.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
I think one of the things that really screwed over Dwayne, and I hate to say it, but I think it was their Urban Meyer, Zach Smith fiasco at the end of the year. Because for weeks,
100%.
If you were talking what's the news around the Ohio State program, it was, Urban Meyer suspended. Zach Smith is tweeting about massage parlors. It wasn't, look at how amazing Dwayne Haskins is. The news has been Urban Meyer, Zach Smith all year long. And so that's what, Haskins wasn't getting the pub. They were getting the pub. That was the story. And had that not been the case, had it just been a normal year for Urban Meyer in, off the field malfeasance, it could be completely different. Right now, we could be doing a celebration podcast and, making our own little Heisman poses and posting them on Facebook. Heisman selfies.
Yeah. I completely 100% agree with that. I think a lot of media people out there were salty because Ohio State didn't suspend Urban Meyer for the whole year or fire him.
Yeah, well, that could be it too.
You know,
this could be like making Dwayne pay.
Exactly. And
since he never committed.
Right, exactly. And I'm sorry, but come at the next level, playing on Sundays, Dwayne Haskins is going to be having a much longer, more prolific career if any of the three are going to have a true shot at longevity at the next level. Dwayne Haskins, and everybody knows it, Dwayne Haskins is going to be of the three that has that opportunity and is going to get that chance.
Barring injury.
Tagovailoa, barring injury, obviously. But
let's put this way. He looks like the best quarterback the Big Ten's ever had. Statistically, he's the best quarterback the Big Ten's ever had. And the Big Ten just happened to have some guys by the name of, Breeze and Brady that kind of had some half decent NFL careers,
Yeah. I mean, hell, then the list goes on and on. I mean, you look at the Big Ten Conference and obviously, guys that have set records. I mean,
you could argue those are the two best guys right now.
Yeah. It is what it is. I think Dwayne got screwed over a little bit. We all knew that he was going to finish third. I mean, everybody knew that he was going to finish third, but it wasn't because of his abilities. It was just because everybody had said, well, Oklahoma, Alabama, they're in the college football playoff. And of course, that's where it's at. That's what it means to win a Heisman Trophy. Is it the MVP of the guy on the team that's playing the best or at a certain level? Is that what we're going to do, is basically give the Heisman Trophy to the guy who's on the best team in the country? Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens every year, right? For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, it's a team award. So
when have you ever, Chris, when in recent memory can you remember a guy winning the Heisman that played on like a 9-4 team? A team that finished like second or third in their conference, and had absolutely no shot at their team playing for a national championship. When's the last time you can remember a Heisman Trophy winner playing on a, average, better than average team?
Right.
I'm thinking maybe Barry Sanders at Oklahoma State in 1988,
Yeah, so I just Googled this. It says 7 Heisman winners on the worst teams. So let's see who they got here. So Ty Detmer with 3 losses and 2 ties. So he had three losses and 2 ties in 91.
In the same season?
In the same season for BYU.
They had 2 ties and wow.
3 losses and 2 ties. So let's see what else we got here. This is going back. Paul Hornung at Notre Dame. 2-8 in 1956.
Whoa.
So you're having to go back into the record books here. Let's see here. Jay Berwanger. Wow, there's a name.
He was the first one that ever won it from Chicago, 1935.
Yeah, 4-4. So most of these you're having to go way back. Steve Owens, Oklahoma, was 6-4.
Like, 1969.
Yep, 69, 6-4.
See, that's my point.
Let's see here.
You've got to go back.
Yeah,
to
there's nothing recent.
Newt Rockne. Yeah, the Newt Rockne, Amos Alonzo
Jim
Stagg
Plunkett
era to find. Yeah, really. Jim Plunkett won it in 70, and they went to the Rose Bowl that year.
And beat Ohio State.
And they beat Ohio State.
Why are they saying this is on a bad team? I don't understand why they're saying this is on a bad team.
What was their record that year?
It's not saying it in this article.
Boy, there you go. You go play and win a Rose Bowl, and you're considered to be on a bad team. Boy, whoever made that list is an idiot. What's their name?
This is Hero Sports. I don't know what the name is.
Oh, here we go. I live in my grandma's freaking basement.com.
RG3 on a team. That was relatively recently.
Baylor. That's 2011. They were an average team that year.
Yeah, and what was the record? So I guess they lost crushing defeats to A&M 55-28 and Oklahoma State 59-24. So that team got smacked around a couple times, as I guess the reason they're saying that. And you go to Andre Ware in 89.
89 Houston.
But they were 9-2. So it's not like that was and then I guess they're putting Ty Detmer at number 1 on the list with this 8-3-2 record, I guess. So but there's some other, like those guys, none of those are recent. RG3 is the most recent. So
yeah, so, it's always going to go to a guy who, don't get me wrong, I'm not necessarily saying that Kyler Murray doesn't deserve the Heisman Trophy. I mean, like I said, you look at him statistically, he is actually ahead of Dwayne in some categories. Not by much, but he is ahead of him.
Right.
But for, it's kind of like the CFP committee putting Georgia ahead of Ohio State. It doesn't really matter between 5 and 6. Neither of you are playing for a national championship anyways. But for them to have put, for Haskins to have been third and gotten like 700 points in the voting, as opposed to Tua, who got 1,800. Yeah. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa is not, I'm sorry, there is no way in hell, like you said, Tua, you're just in a system, buddy. And that's why, and don't get me wrong, I mean, you're a hell of an athlete and you're going to get drafted and you might play for a couple of years at the next level before you peter out. But there's no way he's head and shoulders that much better than Dwayne Haskins. It's just laughable, dude. Laughable.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
So anyways, hey, before we jump off the microphone here, anything, we did not cover that you wanted to cover today otherwise?
I mean, the only thing I would say that we didn't cover was just that, what would the recruiting impact be with Day getting hired? And that's another reason why going with Day, a good reason to go with Day over like bringing in an external candidate is the kids for 2019 and 2020 that were already committed were familiar with Day. And they lost very few kids. They had just 2 decommits, both of them from the 2020 class. Both of them still considering Ohio State. This would be Jake Ray and Lejean Cavazos, I guess. Lejean Cavazos.
Is it Legend or Legend?
Legend, Legend. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought it was Legend, but I could see him, Legend.
Yeah, it's definitely not spelled like Legend, but
yeah, not at all.
But both those kids were like, hey, they've got time. They're not till class of 2020 kids, and they're both still considering Ohio State, so they could get right back in the mix with those kids. So recruiting impact, as small as you're going to get for bringing in a new coach, and if they brought in they did a national coaching search. I mean, think if they did a national coaching search that went on for months, which sometimes happens. I mean, they'd be fucked for 2019 because kids aren't going to know who they're going to be playing for. I mean, they would only had, I'd suspect half the kids to decommit. Well, and the early signing period is, just a few days away in December here. And they call it the early signing period. If you remember last year, the first year it happened, it was basically signing day. It wasn't early signing day. It was signing day. Because that's when 80 to 90% of the kids signed,
Yeah.
So, and they would have,
I think actually Urban came out with a stat and said 92% of kids now are at least last year, like you said, it was we're only in year 2 of the early signing period, but last year, first year available for it, 92% of the kids signed on that day.
Yeah, so I mean, are you expecting these kids to sign with a coach that they don't even know who, an unnamed coach? This team's still doing this national search. I know, probably not. I mean, maybe a couple would just be, I'm diehard Ohio State. I don't care. I'm like Tivis Powell. I bleed scarlet and gray. I'm going to OSU no matter what. I'm talking about the famous Luke Fickell class where he got in some of those guys, Pat Elflein, Tivis Powell, to sign, knowing that he wasn't going to be there going forward. So getting local kids around the Columbus area that ended up being, legends at Ohio State. You get some of those, but for the most part, you could forget about the class of 2019. Well, and then they're behind the 8 ball starting for 2020 because the recruiting starts early, right? They're already halfway. Those relationships are already, well underway for most of those 2020 kids. Now, you're going to maintain those relationships. You're going to they lost nobody from 2019. So, and if you lose a year or two in recruiting, that's going to leave a mark, where if this, that this will really help to keep the cupboard stacked for Day. He got a full cupboard, and for the foreseeable future, with these classes looking the way they are, it's going to stay stacked. So just, can he get it done on the field? Can he win some of those coin flip kind of games? We'll find out soon enough.
There you go. Yeah, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on recruiting. And once again, Ohio State, as far as I'm concerned, man, yeah, they recruit themselves. Granted, yes, you do have to have somebody in place that the kids are going to want to play for. And I think Ryan Day is a good guy that the kids are going to want to play for, and they're going to respect. I really do. I believe that. So I think, him being who he is, his personality, at least from what I've seen, at interview sessions or just on the sidelines or what have you, and the fact that it's Ohio State, I don't think it's going to take a major hit. But, in instances like Lejeune, whatever, Cavazos, and Jake Ray, you're going to get that, obviously. But the fact that they only lost 2 commits. And
they may not even lost them. They may come right back.
Well, and exactly, and like Jake Ray said, hey, one of the reasons I committed as early as I did was with the exception of no major coaching changes, major head coaching changes. Obviously, that's pretty big change when Urban says he's going to step down. So Jake Ray just said, all right, I'm going to pull back. I am going to open up my recruiting process again. But, hey, Ohio State's still in the mix. So, and I think the Lejeune kid, said the same thing. So, yeah, I don't think recruiting is necessarily going to take a hit. But, hey, proof's in the pudding.
Right.
Let's see what happens. I'm going to be interested to see if Ryan Day puts a little bit more of a fence around the state of Ohio, much like Jim Tressel did, that Urban basically tore down and said, yeah, come on in, take some guys. And granted, you can't be angry at, the guys that Urban passed over here in the state of Ohio to win out and go out and get in their place. But, I mean, if you're going to take a 3-4-star guy from, Pennsylvania, why not take that same 3-4-star kid from the state of Ohio?
Right.
Because I can guarantee a 3-4-star kid from the state of Ohio is going to be better than just about any other 3 or 4-star kid from another state, including a Texas, a Florida, a California, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Louisiana. So, but yeah, proof's going to be in the pudding. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not concerned about getting talent from Ohio. It's, is he going to be able to get Dwayne Haskins out of Maryland? Is he going to be able to get Joey and Nick Bosa out of Florida? That sort of thing. We'll find out. So,
yeah, now those are the kids you definitely have to go out of state for.
An Eli Apple out of, Jersey and then so forth. So, but we'll see. I mean, Ohio State recruiting has been great for decades now. I mean, it was great under Cooper, it was great under Tressel, and of course, great under Urban Meyer. So you're right. Like, probably not really anything to worry too much. But they were going to probably have an off. If they did bring in an outside guy, I'm sure he'd be good going forward. But you got to think 2019, that class would have been trash if they're taking 6 weeks to do a national coaching search or 8 weeks, it's like, forget it.
Yeah. And I think that was another reason, too, why they honestly pulled the trigger as fast as they did, because Urban Price said, look, if we're going to do this, if this is going to happen, if I'm going to step down, I got to make the announcement as, right after the Big Ten championship game. And because we've got that early signing day, coming up very soon. And I don't want recruiting to take a hit.
Yep. So he absolutely said, he says, it's not fair to these kids with early signing coming for me to delay this announcement any longer. He absolutely said that. Yep.
So there you go. Exactly. Straight from his mouth, the horse's mouth itself, Mr. Urban Meyer. So, well, cool, man. Hey, before we crack him off then, what else do you got for the folks out there?
Just my usual. Come check out my personal development podcast, Choice Conversations, is at choiceconversations.com or anywhere where you would find podcasts. Stop by and I will help you to improve your life in all areas. Choice Conversations. Check it out.
Awesome. This edition of the Buckeye Leafcast also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC, and Columbus Wired for your premier source for Central Ohio sports in and around not only the Central Ohio area, but the entire friggin' state. Be sure to check us out at columbuswired.net. So, Chris, there you go. I guess we didn't think that we were going to be doing one of these podcasts so soon after the Big Ten championship game. We kind of felt, we're going to have one there before the Rose Bowl, do a Rose Bowl preview, obviously, and we'll do a post-Rose Bowl recap, as well as, I'm sure, a whole season recap. But Urban kind of shocked us, came out and said he was out, and you're like, well, looks like we have another podcast to do. So a sad day, unfortunately, in Buckeye Nation, but let's hope for good things moving forward. And I got faith in Ryan Day. I'm just a little skeptical here as to what things are going to look like right off the bat.
Hey, for all we know, he's the next Nick Saban, and we're set for decades now.
Yeah. Hey,
he'll be the next Woody.
If that happens, just don't throw any punches, Ryan. That's all I got to say.
We better not play Clemson.
Yeah, right? All right, brother, let's leave them like we always do. OH, go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town. I want to go back, I gotta go back to